the champion hurdle. This should be fairly straightforward because we just covered half of the field with the Mayor's Hurdle preview there. But looks to, in all intents and purposes, be a 4-horse race. I know we had the year that Espoir de Lan won when it was supposed to be Bouverdere versus Applejade versus Lorena, but there isn't the fly in the ointment type horse in it. I mean, Burdett Road would have potentially been that type, but after getting beat by Golden Ace, they've even talked about maybe even going for a handicap hurdle with him. It's not the sort of talk of a future champion hurdler, is all I'm saying. So the winner must come from the 4. Depends which of those 4 run. State Man, well worth talking about him just for the fact that Paul Townend chose him at Dublin Racing Festival, which was a shock to some people, and I don't know why, because he isn't the best at Cheltenham, but he's very good at Leopardstown typically. I know he got beat by Bright Days Head before, but I don't think many horses would have got close to her that day. I do wonder now, as much as Lossy Mouth did fall, whether Paul will still side with State Man, because State Man was very laboured in that finish for all that he was going out and doing things on his own. It wasn't the type of performance that I would think Paul Townend would have come back to Classatin and thought, whoa, he can beat Constitution Hill this year. I think he'd have come off of him thinking, I definitely haven't got a chance in Cheltenham now. So depends how they're all working, and jockey bookings will be interesting. But I would, it's hard to jump off the reigning champion hurdle champ, but I think it's easier after what happened last time for all that Lossy Mouth did fall. So it wouldn't surprise me if he rides Lossy Mouth, and that will have a bit of a play in the market. We talked about already in that Mayor's Hurdle preview when we're saying that it's been a 2-year plan. But all of this stuff said, Brighter Days Ahead's better than Lossy Mouth, I think, although it's on a small sample size. That race, what she did in Leopardstown, was filthy. And I know people will say that she beat Winter Fogs in second, and she's beaten she was only beating King of Kingsfield a few lengths at the start of the season. But she beat him a few lengths at the start of the season when I think King of Kingsfield was given a quiet ride behind. Let's just put it that way. Then what she did at Leopardstown, she showed that she's 40 lengths clear of that type of horse. And to be able to maintain that type of a gallop for that significant amount of time, even Willie Mullins and other yards were saying it was a very impressive performance. And I think because it happened at Christmas and didn't happen at Dublin Racing Festival, it's sort of been maybe forgotten about a little bit. So she looks the biggest threat to Constitution Hill, but I'm going a roundabout way to say, Will, I hope they all turn up and we get even money Constitution Hill, because he still is one of the greatest horses that's ever graced Prestbury Park. He, as far as I'm concerned, he will win a champion hurdle. I'd happily bet him and lose my money if he gets beat by a better horse on the day. And I know he's 2 runs this season. People will say, well, his RPRs aren't as good as before and performances aren't at that of a champion hurdler. But he hasn't got the types of horses to go and challenge him, I guess, in those races. I know Lossy Mouth and Burdett Road were in that Christmas hurdle, but put both of those to bed quite easily. And I'm not buying the excuses for Lossy Mouth there. And he, before that Christmas hurdle as well, he was lame, wasn't he, after a workout in Newbury and stuff in between, like a couple of weeks before. Imagine being that good a horse to win a Grade 1 after you weren't very well a couple of weeks ago. So look, I know he's got that last hurdle scare in there after 2 jumps. Now he's done it, but I don't see any world that Constitution Hill gets beat unless he's not anywhere near 100% on the day, and you can't predict those types of things for any horses. So Constitution Hill will win the champion hurdle. You can mark my words on that one, and I pray they all come against him, because 8-13 about him isn't terrible. I'd happily stick him in a few multis at the time, but he's about 4-5 on the exchanges. If they all do turn in here, I think we might get odds against Constitution Hill, which after what he did a couple of years ago, sounds like I'm a madman saying something like that. But is there any world you see that State Man wins this for starters, or Lossy Mouth, or is it Brighter Days Ahead is the main threat, do you think?
I think if they all turn up on their A game, Constitution Hill wins comfortably. And I think on what we've seen this year, we probably haven't seen an A game from Lossy Mouth or State Man yet. Willie Mullins, will always train his horses to peak from March onwards. So, there is a chance that were to happen. They've not had things go smoothly, though, have they? With regards to Lossy Mouth, she obviously came up against Constitution Hill in that Christmas hurdle, and was put to the pin of her collar very, very early on by the pace that Burdett Road was going, and that suggested that she didn't quite have the speed for that type of race. But Champion Hurdle's a bit different, a little bit further, softer ground, more undulating track, etc., etc. But then the fall, she's been very weak on the exchanges for both races since that fall as well. So, is she A-okay? Is she going to turn up in that kind of form? It's got to be a doubt for me. State Man obviously won last time out. And it's tricky to know, obviously, because of the fall, how that race was shaping up. The one thing you could say was that they had gone a million miles an hour, him and Lossy Mouth, up to that point. So it would have been fascinating to see how they'd have compared in the closing stages of the race under pressure from each other. That would have told us so much more. It might well have helped actually State Man and probably Lossy to some degree that they didn't have that, real end-to-end battle in what would have been a very, very tough race after they'd gone so quick. So just question marks for me about State Man and Lossy. Could be a really good matchup between Brighter Days Ahead and Constitution Hill. If Brighter Days Ahead goes here, King of Kingsfield will probably be in here, and they'll try similar tactics to what they did at Christmas time. That will help Brighter Days Ahead, but it will also help Constitution Hill, of course, because he won't have to do his own donkey work. So, yeah, I think whichever way you cut this, find it hard to see Constitution Hill not winning. I do hope, like everyone, that it turns into a really informative, interesting race. But we've said that many times at this stage of the year, even 2 weeks out for these races, and suddenly come the day, they're not quite what we wanted them to be. But who knows? Of course, with this and the Mayor's Hurdle, it's worth remembering there is still a supplementary stage as well. Quite what might come into the picture for either, nothing springs to mind massively, apart from maybe Joyous for the Mayors, but it's definitely something to consider. There are forward-thinking connections out there who will be looking at both races and thinking, well, they're not both going to be really strong. There's going to be maybe an opportunity in one or the other. So, yeah, worth bearing in mind.
Yeah, that is very true. But Constitution Hill wins, so we don't need to know anymore. It's all just a case of what price we're going to be able to bet him at, isn't it? And obviously, it's gamble responsibly and all those things. But as I say, comparatively, you don't have to do this. And obviously, every horse is their own individual. But when I see the different types of favourites for the festival in terms of where their price is at, and you look at their ability, the questions they've got to answer, and things like that, like, he is relatively solid, dare I say, even though he has had his issues and he's coming back and winning, because he still has an unblemished record. He's still one of the fastest horses that's ever run on a race course, and he's still put in those 2 phenomenal races at the Cheltenham Festival in the past, beating some very, very good horses. He should just be miles clear of him, shouldn't he? But if it was that easy, then we wouldn't need to do these previews, would we?